as devastating as it is, I am just grateful that we didn't have any loss of life as of now here in Taylor County, because this was really, really hazardous. Now, statewide, we are down to, I believe, about 800,000 without power. There have been about 1.5 million restorations since the storm began, and those restorations are continuing. Now, Taylor and the surrounding counties here are all basically out. And I talked to Duke, I talked to some of the companies. They understand that this is important, but some of these things are going to potentially need to be totally rebuilt in some areas for the power transmission. That just takes longer than if you're just having to hook up lines for generation. So we are going to continue to assist in any way we can. Having these linemen staged before, it's a really smart thing to do. We were just down in St. Pete Beach. We had Melissa from Duke Energy. I mean, they had people staged at Tropicana Field there at the Dome. They had people staged at the Villages in Central Florida. Really, really positive. Of course, we were at TECO earlier in the week with what they were doing to stage. So that really makes a difference. I mean, there's certain people that have serious damage to their home, people that have lost their home. But then you've got the vast majority of people, even though the storm was serious, if we get the services, the roads, and everything back, it really helps, I think, with the stabilization and the recovery. So I want to thank everyone who's been involved with that.
Governor, how do you describe this storm? When you travel around the state, you've been through a few. Since you've been governor, we seem to have gotten hit quite a few times. How do you describe this one compared to the others?
Well, I think in one sense, this was a large storm. I mean, I don't think we've ever had a storm that caused as much damage without really interacting with most parts of the state directly. I mean, this eye wall never touched the Florida peninsula. It hit North Florida, but yet from really Fort Myers had storm surge. You go up Sarasota, places like Anna Maria Island, Manatee County, they said they haven't had this bad a surge ever that they can remember. And then, of course, coming up here and seeing just monumental surge where it actually made landfall, you kind of know there's been storms that have been, like Ian was a Category 5, it rammed into Southwest Florida, obviously and then it rode up the middle of the state and then out the East Coast. Well, you know that's going to do a lot of damage. But you kind of think if you're 100, 150 miles away from the eye of the storm, not that you're not going to feel effects, but I think most people would be like, 6 foot of storm surge when it's that? Yeah, we understand when it gets closer. So I think just how far the storm reached was there. Not the most powerful storm Florida's ever faced. I think it hit 140 miles an hour when it made landfall. But, we had our Labor Day hurricane in the 30s, so 185 miles per hour. But just how wide it was and how it brought a lot of surge up and down. Probably 200 miles of coastline had some surge. And it's interesting because like Tampa Bay had Pasco County right north. Then as you got into like Citrus County, which actually had a lot of from Idalia, they actually didn't get it as bad as they got it from Idalia. So sometimes there's not really a method to these things. It's just kind of the way it happened. But I said this in the other statement that we made down in Pinellas County. We started mobilizing for this over the weekend. We did the state of emergency Monday. Kevin and his team have been working with the National Hurricane Center. They got this forecast basically right on the nose. They were, before the storm was formed, they projected a major hurricane coming in to the Big Bend region of Florida. They've never predicted a major prior to a hurricane being formed, I think, in the modern history of the agency. And so they did that. And then on almost every model runs we were seeing, there was Cat 2, Cat 3, even yesterday. They always said it was going to be stronger than what those were doing. So sometimes the forecasts aren't as accurate, and when they're not, they get a lot of heat. But this one was dead on, and so they deserve credit for getting it right.
For Idalia, you were saying that hitting this area would be the best worst-case scenario because it's not very populated. Well, now we've had 3 of them. Are you still kind of thinking that this is still the best?
Well, it's never a best case scenario. No,
best worst case
it's just when we're state capitals in Tallahassee, people obviously get very apprehensive about a storm going in there. And the reality is the fact that this bent east meant less damage for Tallahassee. It's not that we're saying we prefer one or the other, but that's just the reality of the situation. I was driving to and from the EOC. you wouldn't have even known. I mean, there's maybe some damage. I'm not going to say there's no damage in Tallahassee at all, but I mean, I did not see any major damage. I think Corey will probably agree. I don't know what he's seen. And yet you come just a county or two over, and it's like, man, so you don't want them to ever hit a period. I think the population that went in this route for Florida was less than if it went into some other parts. But this has also gone into Georgia. It's gone into the North Carolina. It's gone into Tennessee. They're having a hell of a time right now because at least we deal with this, and it's terrible, but we kind of know how to deal with it. Those places in the mountains of North Carolina, they're not used. They basically shut down Western North Carolina. You can't even get in and use the roads at this point. It's, I think, tough when you haven't dealt with it before. So no, you don't want to have them ever come. We were not rooting for it to move one way or another. I don't want it to hit Florida at all. You know, the problem is when it gets in the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to hit something. You know, the Atlantic hurricanes, a lot of those will turn north and they'll ride up the coast, and they don't even directly impact them. Not every time, but a lot. And there's been a big history of that. These, it's going to ram into something. And so it rammed into here. And you have a community that's been hit a couple times, which is bad enough. I mean, even if it was a Cat 1, that's bad enough. But then to have one that's bigger than the other two, really, really difficult set of circumstances.
And a lot of these people are just now getting rebuilt from Hurricane Idalia. Are you worried about what this will do with the property insurance, with these people having to make yet another claim a year later?
Well, I'm concerned at some of the people who may have had their insurance canceled in the last year. I mean, we had just talked to some folks. They basically, their insurer ran for cover after the Idalia. So there may be people that weren't able even to get insurance. So I think that's going to be a very messy situation. Yes, I am concerned about it. I mean, there's certain things we can do to help. We are going to petition to get the individual assistance from FEMA. I would imagine that's going to be granted given the severity of the storm. That is not going to be able to be a substitute for what a full insurance would do, but it can help people who are in need.
Have you talked to the president about him coming to survey the damage?
I have not. All right, we're going to go to Cedar Key. We're going to go meet with folks there, but of course we'll be back in this area. And Kevin knows he's already got some tasks to be able to help put some resources into effect for the people here in Taylor County. And look, this is kind of the really difficult times are when people have to dig deep and just be resilient. It's not easy. This has not been easy, but we're going to get through it. We will do that. And the folks in this part of the state, they're a resilient bunch. They're tough. They're going to put their best foot forward. So this is a long process. Yes, we would like to pray that we don't get any more storms. I think that would be very good for everybody. But we'll deal with whatever hand cards that we're dealt, and we'll play that hand accordingly. Thanks.